Ham Fixin's Net, first and third Monday, 7 p.m., W5SC. This is the W5FC repeater, PL110.9.
Cam 5 test 1, 2, 3, 4. Cam 5.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Does anyone need to use the repeater before we begin the net? This is Whiskey Bravo. I'm sorry. Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima. My name is Brenda. I'm in DeSoto. I'll be your net control for this session of the VARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign break break and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me. And stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.88 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echo Link are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echo Link node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available on to www.w5fc.org right now for the complete list. Remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. The net is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. 1. General announcements. 2. Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events. where and when you can look through a telescope. 3 National Space Society events for discussion topic of the evening. 5 was up. The 6 space exploration and space history. 7 constellation of the week. 8 space launches this week. 9 recent astronomical discoveries. 10 visible satellite passages over the next couple of days. 11 astronomical Q&A and 12 73 round. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in now. Let's start with low power and short time. Please come now. Name, call sign, name, and location.
November 5, Whiskey Oscar India, William and Alan, short time.
This is Whiskey 5, Golf, Uniform, Sierra, Gus, far northeast Dallas, low power 5 watts.
We've got N5WOI, William, and W5GUS, sorry, Gus. Okay, let's go with regular check-ins.
This is Alpha Charlie 5, Delta Lima, Dave Lewisville.
Kilo, Foxtrot 5, Tango, Sierra Kilo, Burl and Dallas.
I'm sort of irregular, but I'll check in anyway. KF5, JHA, Chaz, Mesquite.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Bill in Irving.
Kilo, Bravo 5, Delta, Mike, Charlie, Brian in Roanoke.
Kilo, Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo, Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
Kilo 5, Kilo, Tango X-Ray, Kelly in Quinlan.
Kilo India 5, Lima Whiskey Alpha, Billy,
This is Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James in Carrollton.
Kilo Delta 5, Fox Papa Charlie, Cody in Collin County.
Kilo Golf 5, Oscar Mike Romeo, Marcia in Dallas.
Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray, Tom, Louisville.
All right, let's go through those. I'm going to need at least one film. We have AC5DL, Dave, KF5TSK, Burl, KF5JHA, Chaz, N5BB, Bill, KB5DMC, Brian, KF5ZBL, Bill, K5KTX, Kelly, and then the next one, I missed your call. Could you come back with it?
That might be me. Kilo Delta 5, Foxtrot Papa Charlie.
Aren't you Tony Tony, KD5 FPC, or Tony?
Cody, Charlie, Oscar, Delta, Yankee, but close enough.
Yeah, I got you. I'm missing Billy, which I think is KI5 something.
KI5 Lima Whiskey Alpha, Ellis County.
Thank you, KI5 Lima Whiskey Alpha, Billy. And then we have KG5 WVL James, KG5 OMR Marcia, and KE5 ICX Tom. Do we have anybody on Echolink?
This is Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey. J. November.
KG5 QXI.
Texas Whiskey 0, Mike, Bravo Charlie, Shane.
Okay, we have KG5BZWJ, and then the next two calls doubled. So I have, it sounds like KG5 QXI, and missed your name. If that's correct, please come back.
That's correct, and it's Glenn in Rockwell.
Thank you, and Shane and Bethany, I missed your call. Please go ahead.
No problem. Whiskey 0, Mike, Bravo Charlie.
All right, Whiskey 0, Mike, Bravo, Charlie. Well, welcome to the net, everybody. How about any other check-ins, any mode? Please come down.
This is Whiskey Bravo number 4, Mike, Foxtrot, India, WV4MFI, Ted, Dallas, low power.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Alpha, Papa, Lima, Patrick and Dallas.
Okay, we have WB4, MFI, Ted, KB9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean, and KG5 APL, Patrick. All right, that's a pretty healthy check-in to start with. So let's go ahead and get started. Do we have any general announcements for the evening's net? These can be ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams.
KG5 APL.
KG5 APL. Go ahead, Patrick.
Hey all, this is KG5 APL. I guess I saw an interesting article the other day that we have a rocket or a booster that's returned back to Earth, but not in the way that we think with SpaceX. So it appears that the Surveyor 2 upper stage, which was in a solar orbit, has returned back to Earth and will be orbiting for, I guess, the next month or so, until January or February, I believe. So apparently they thought this may have been an asteroid, and when they went to go track its orbit, they traced it back, and it turns out, tracing the orbit back, it may have come from the Earth, and they looked about when it would be there, and it was right about the time that Surveyor 2 was launched. So I just thought I'd share that. That's kind of a little interesting article. We have a little bit of history to come back to Earth after about 50 or so years. If you want to read more about it, there's an article up on nasa.gov. Just search for Surveyor 2 Booster Return, and I think that'll get you close enough to the article. You can read more about it. That's it. KG5APL, back to net.
Okay, thank you. We also have some people from Brookhaven. Jocelyn, April, and Caliph. And then we have Bobby, WD5BPX. Okay, we have AMSAT, Radio Amateur Satellite Group, has 2 nets available to Dallas residents on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central. You'll need Echolink installed and be registered. You can find the net under Groups and AMSAT. Also, a live audio link is available on their website, www.amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston. Dallas AMSAT Net East, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, is every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on this repeater, 146.880 megahertz, PL 110.9 megahertz, Tuesdays. Tom, N5HYP, is net control. All are welcome to check in. First Tuesday of the month is the DARC Club Night. No AMSAT East that night. Dallas AMSAT Net Dallas-Fort Worth is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, 147.14 megahertz, PL 110.9 megahertz, positive offset. We have a number of nets throughout the week. You can go to our website to check them out, w5fc.org. This is not our only net tonight. At 10:30, approximately, we have the Afterglow net. This is where we watch some fine old science fiction film, and then we talk about it. So tonight's movie is Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1978. So here's a synopsis. David Gibner playing with a stack of books on his desk. He was discouraged over the less than stellar book signing. Somehow his latest opus, Alien Creatures' Reaction to Pine-Scented Room Deodorizers, hadn't become the public buzz he'd expected. He knocked the book stack over to see what would happen. The books fell onto the table, but they didn't gather any attention from the buying public shopping around him. Gibner saw a lot of activity at the Star Trek table. William Shatner was soaking up all the attention, and his book, Star Trek Makes Me Ungodly Sums of Money, So Buzz Off, was doing a brisk business. Join us for an A-list sci-fi movie and dubbed the best sci-fi remake of all time, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1978, tonight at 10:30 p.m. Okay, next up, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events. Do we have anybody that can report on that? Please come now.
KF5JHA.
KF5JHA, go ahead, Chaz.
Thank you, Brenda. Good evening, everyone. The last Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas meeting was last night on November the 20th at 7:30 p.m., and it was a virtual meeting. The guest speakers were Dr. Richard Olenek and Arthur Sweeney from the University of Dallas. They talked about finding exoplanets. They had lots of information. It was really great. I've known these two gentlemen for a couple of decades. Excuse me. Have a frog in my throat. Let me see. I've already talked about this. Oh, they also talked about the new Swenson Observatory for Astrophysical Research. Now, the next Texas Astronomical Society Club meeting will actually be the awards banquet that we usually have, but it'll be a virtual thing, so I guess you have to provide your own food for yourself. It's going to be on December the 5th at 7 p.m. There'll be a link that'll be sent out probably a week or so in advance of that. And the next regular meeting will be January the 22nd, 2021 meeting. It'll be held at 7:30 p.m. With Stephen Tompkins talking about binoculars. Task Club members, again, will receive a link for that meeting as well, about a week in advance. I have no idea when we're going to resume having face-to-face meetings, and Task, I hope, will sometime in the future resume having public observing stations. Hopefully sooner than later. But anyway, if you want more information, texasastro.org is a place to go on the internet for updated information. Back to you, Brenda. This is KF5JHA.
Thank you, Taz. Do we have any information on the National Space Society? Bill N5BB usually does that. Are you here? Okay, does anybody else have anything on the National Space Society?
Oh, N5BB, did you call me? I missed.
I did, yes. Do you have something on the National Space Society?
Yes, I do. I'm sorry, Brenda. I was distracted with something else for just a moment. And my apologies. Yes, I happen to be the membership director of the National Space Society of North Texas. If you have any questions or want to join our local chapter or the international group, you can send me an email at space@byrom.net. That's SPACE@BYROM.net. Or my ham email address, n5bb@arrl.net. The National Space Society local meeting is normally at a restaurant in Irving on the second Sunday afternoon of every month. Of course, we can't do that now with the coronavirus, so we've been doing the meetings virtually on WebEx. Our next meeting is going to be on Sunday, December the 13th. That is about 3 weeks from now. And our presenter will be Amy Ross. She works at NASA Johnson Spacecraft Center in Houston as one of the key designers of spacesuits. She happens to be the daughter of astronaut Jerry Ross. She was supposed to talk to us in September, but she couldn't make that meeting, so we rescheduled her to December. If you would like a visitor pass, if you'd like a visitor invite to that virtual meeting, again, contact me, N5BB at ARRL.net or space@byrom.net. I'll be glad to get you an invitation. National Space Society has other things going on for its members. Very interesting webinars concerning living in space, where we should go first to space, arguments, literally kind of there's some heated discussions that have been broadcast about whether we should go to the moon or Mars, or both. Then, of course, the big hot recent space news was the Crew 1 launch by SpaceX here, which went just really well. That's all I got for now in 5BB. Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you, Bill. This is WB50ZL. Do we have any more check-ins? Please come now.
Alpha Foxtrot 5 Tango X-Ray.
Okay, we have a Alpha 5 Tango X-Ray, and I assume that is BJ.
Yes, ma'am. And it's Alpha Foxtrot 5 Tango X-Ray. AFX. Not that I'm correcting you, but I just want to make sure you got it right.
Oh, that's what I wrote. If it wasn't what I said, I apologize. Okay, let's go on to the main topic of the evening, which is entitled Radishes to Spacesuits, Scientific Experiments on ISS Mission 64. That's the current one, of course. Baby Yoda has made it to space. Not his real name, of course, but the child from the Mandalorian TV show has joined other toys such as Tremor the Dinosaur, Buzz Lightyear, Snoopy, and Woody Woodpecker as crew members are mascots of space flights. But enough play. Astronauts have much work to do conducting hundreds of scientific experiments on each mission. On Sunday, 4 astronauts begin their journey through space to the International Space Station, where they will be spending 6 months living and working on board the orbiting laboratory. SpaceX's human-carrying capsule successfully launched at 7:27 p.m. Eastern from Launch Complex 39A at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, carrying NASA astronauts Michael Hopkins, Victor Glover, Shannon Walker, and Soichi Noguchi from the Japanese space agency JAXA. And I trust you all watched it. I did. It was a lot of fun. The international crew of astronauts carried new space hardware and experiments along for the ride, and they will conduct hundreds of microgravity experiments on board the space station during their stay. Orbiting 250 miles above the Earth's surface, the ISS is a laboratory like no other. Experiments on board range from cultivating human organs to growing radishes in microgravity and testing out soccer balls. And the newly launched ISS Expedition 64 is added to the eclectic roster, bringing radishes, cool new spacesuits, and checking in on astronauts' hearts and brains. Last year, NASA unveiled 2 new spacesuits designed for the upcoming crewed Artemis mission, scheduled to lift off for the moon in 2024. The new suits, dubbed the Exploration Extravehicular Mobility Unit, provide added mobility, environmental control, and life support system. They also use evaporation of water to maintain a relatively stable temperature for the astronauts and alleviate heat. Astronauts on board the space station won't get to don the new suit prototypes just yet, but the thermal control loop that controls the temperatures has been reconfigured into a single package to be tested in the spacesuit evaporation rejection flight experiment on the station. The experiment will simulate 25 8-hour spacewalks, which is when the astronauts venture outside the space station to do repairs or upgrades. Astronauts living in space are forced to survive on prepackaged frozen meals delivered to them from Earth. But as space agencies start to visualize long-duration missions to destinations millions of miles away, then a fresh source of food is more ideal. The new members of the crew will tend to radish seeds that were launched aboard a Northrop Grumman resupply spacecraft, which will be planted in a small chamber with LED lighting on board the station. Previous farming ventures on the station included growing red romaine lettuce, which astronauts first planted in May 2014, as a part of an experiment called Veg 01, where seeds were watered and cared for by members of Expedition 39. The crops were left to grow for 33 days before being harvested and sent down to Earth to be analyzed and ensure they were safe to eat. In August 2015, NASA's Kennedy Space Center finally gave the okay for the astronauts on board to enjoy the greens of their labor. Human beings have been venturing out into space for more than 50 years, yet the effects of spaceflight on the human body are still not fully understood. NASA's Human Research Program relies on the astronauts on board the space station for studies on how the human body adapts to time spent in a microgravity environment and whether the effects of being in space can cause permanent damage to human beings. This research is crucial to humanity's future as space agencies set their sights on missions to far-out destinations like Mars. One of the experiments that will be conducted as part of Expedition 64 is showing the effect of a microgravity environment on heart cells and tissues by using engineered heart tissues. The tissues will be incubated and put under the microscope in space, and the samples will be collected at different times. Another experiment on the human body is one designed by two students from Troy High School in Troy, Michigan, examining neural function on board the ISS. The experiment is designed to assess how spaceflight affects the human brain and the brain function, as well as come up with ways to mitigate these effects. Expedition 64 is the 64th and current long-duration expedition to the ISS. It began on October 21st, 2020, with the undocking and departure of Soyuz MS-16. The expedition started with the 3 crew members launched on board Soyuz MS-17 and reached its full complement with the arrival of SpaceX Crew 1, the first operational flight of NASA's Commercial Crew Program, CCP. As Crew 1 consists of a crew of 4 instead of 3, like the Soyuz, Expedition 64 marks the beginning of operations for crews of 7 on the ISS. The mission is scheduled to end on 18 April 2021 with the departure of Soyuz MS-17. Okay, do we have any more check-ins?
Kilo Mike 5 Patrick Dallas.
Oh, your signal's so weak, I didn't get any of that. Would you please repeat it?
Okay, standing on the fire hydrant. Kilo Mike 5 Patrick Dallas.
I still didn't get any of that. Stand by, please.
Lima. Patrick in Dallas.
All right, I got Patrick, and it's Kilo Mike 5 Lima. Thank you for checking in. This is WB5OZL. And now our next section is What's Up? Chaz KF5JHA. Go ahead.
Thank you again, Brenda. This is KF5JHA Chaz. My degree's in astrophysics, and I'm the astrophysics lab manager at Dallas College on the Brookhaven campus. And this is the segment of Skynet that we call What's Up? Slide number 2, please, sir, on the slide changer. On November the 14th, the phase of the moon was at its new phase. The moon is at its first quarter tonight. Right now. On November the 30th, the moon will be full. Of course the moon will be full because it will have had a great Thanksgiving meal. I hear all of you laughing out there. More about what happens to the moon on November 30th in a little bit later. Slide number 3. On November the 25th, you can observe another conjunction of Mars and the moon. If you have a telescope, take it out and peek at Mars. It's still close enough. You should be able to see some features on Mars. And then gaze at the moon. Use a moon map, and Glenn over in Echolink gave a link to a good moon map, I guess. I'm going to have to look at it later. But use that moon map to start trying to find some of those prominent features on the moon. If you find and memorize a mountain chain, a crater, and a Maria each month, then in about a year, you'll be familiar with the moon just like it was in your neighborhood. And it is in our celestial neighborhood. All right, I have a question. You can think about this and answer it inside your head if you want to, or you can speak it out loud. Speaking of the moon, how does the moon take care of his hair? Now, if you want to, over in Echolink, you can type in the answer, but I don't know. It might be faster for me to just tell you the answer. How does the moon take care of his hair? Eclipse it! Okay, slide number 4. So speaking of eclipses, there's going to be a penumbral lunar eclipse on November the 30th. Let me talk about this a little bit. There is a dark part of the Earth's shadow called an umbra, and there's a lighter part of the Earth's shadow called the penumbra. The moon will only be going through the lighter part of the Earth's shadow called the penumbra on November the 30th. The moon enters the penumbra at 1:32 a.m. Central Standard Time. Then at mid-eclipse at 3:44 a.m., about 83% of the moon will be inside the penumbral shadow, but it's only going to be a little bit dimmer in brightness. The moon completely leaves the penumbra at 5:53 a.m. Central Standard Time, which ends the eclipse. Slide number 5. On December the 12th, around 3:40 p.m., that's during the day, Central Standard Time, and the time will vary by a few minutes depending on where you are located in the DFW area. There's going to be a daytime occultation of Venus by the moon. It's going to be very low in the west-southwestern afternoon sky. The moon and Venus will only be about 2 degrees high above the horizon, so you'll need to have a very clear west-southwestern sky horizon. You'll need to use binoculars or a telescope to observe this. Probably can't see with your naked eye, but be careful. The sun is about 50 degrees away, so it's not that close to them, but be careful when you've got a telescope or binoculars during the daytime. Slide number 6, on December the 20th and 21st, Jupiter and Saturn will be so close together that they will, in the sky, that they will appear as a single object to the unaided eye. I've had some questions about what you could see through a telescope on those nights of December 20th and 21st. So if you take a look at the image, if you're looking at the video portion of Skynet, like on YouTube, Jupiter and Saturn and their moons can be seen. On the left-hand side is what you'd see with your two eyes, and on the right-hand side is what you could see from a telescope. That's the zoomed-in image of what you could see. So what you could see will be determined by the magnification, the field of view. But on December 20th, you should be able to see all the 4 Galilean moons, Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto, and the biggest moon of Saturn, Titan. Depending on your telescope, the image could be flipped upside down, or flipped left to right, or both. I'm going to be using my 20 by 80 binoculars on those nights at least, because that's easy to pull out for me. But hey, pull out a telescope. It should be a very interesting night. And if you can do astrophotography, oh, I would go take some pictures that night on December the 20th. Slide number 7. Let's talk about meteor showers now. And in November, there were 4 meteor showers to talk about, but I'm only going to talk about one that just had its peak a couple of nights ago on November 17th and 18th. The Leonid meteor shower peaked. I understand from early reports there weren't too many meteors in the sky, but the best time to look for the meteors are between midnight and dawn. We've had some unexpected meteor counts from this meteor shower in the last 20 years. I believe it was 1999. We were able to see 40 fireballs an hour. That was interesting. It was a fun night. Okay, slide number 8. In December, there are 5 meteor showers in December and 1 major meteor shower. Let me just talk about the major meteor shower, the Geminids. It often produces up to 150 meteors per hour. The Geminids will peak on the night of December 13th and 14th. I always suggest camping at a state park to watch the meteors. We have 80 state parks and natural wildlife reserves where you can go camping. For details about meteors and meteor showers, you can always visit the American Meteor Society website at amsmeteors.org or the International Meteor Organization at imo.net. Once again, we've got the Task Club banquet meeting on December the 5th at 7 p.m., and the next regular meeting will be January the 22nd, 2021. That'll be at 7:30 p.m. That'll be Stephen Tompkins talking about binoculars. If you want to learn more about binoculars and how to choose them, I'm sure that's what will be talked about. For more information, go to texasastro.org for that information. Now, do any of you out there in Radio Land have any questions or need a fill on any of the information? Or do you just have a general astronomy question? I don't know everything, but I may know the answer to your question. Come now with your call sign if you have a question. Wow, sounds like everyone knows everything out there. I want to welcome the students from Dallas College at Brookhaven that are listening and watching Skynet tonight. This is the last week for Brookhaven students to be joining us this semester. So students, just a reminder, if you want to get stargazing class credit for this, then remember to fill out the form within the next 48 hours. Slide number 11. So as the moon waned during the first half of November, so do these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world, don't we need it. Until next week, keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is Chaz. My call sign is KF5JHA, and we'll go back to, is it net control or world control? Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you, Chaz. Well, what's the difference between net control and world control? I don't know. Okay, a couple more check-ins. We have Enrique from Brookhaven, and we have KG5IWK Billy. Thanks for joining us. Anybody else want to check in? And this is WB50ZL. All right, our next segment is space exploration and space history. This week it is Kelly Stern, K5KTX. Go ahead, Kelly.
Thank you, Brenda. This is K5KTX. Good evening to everyone. So one of the first things that people want to know before taking a trip is what the weather will be like wherever they're headed. For Artemis astronauts traveling on missions to the moon, 2 space weather instrument suites, NASA's Hermes and ESA's Ursa, will provide an early forecast. Weather in this case means energized subatomic particle electromagnetic fields hurtling through the solar system. The instrument suites, named after 2 of Artemis's half-siblings in Greek mythology, Ursa, the goddess of dew, and Hermes, the messenger of the Olympian gods, will be preloaded on the gateway before the first 2 components are launched, the power and propulsion element and the habitation and logistics outpost. The 2 instrument suites will begin monitoring the lunar radiation environment and return data before crews begin to arrive. Reinforcing decades of agency collaboration in space, NASA and the European Space Agency, or ESA, are each building one of the instrument suites to monitor deep space weather and report data back to Earth. Each agency was able to take advantage of this early opportunity to conduct science from Gateway, first realized in late 2019 by capitalizing on technologies that were mature enough to be delivered by mid-2022. The 2 complementary mini weather stations will split up the work, with Ursa monitoring space radiation at higher energies with focus on astronaut protection, while Hermes monitors lower energies critical to scientific investigations. The night sky may appear dark and empty, but we are swimming through an open sea of high-energy particles, writhing with electric and magnetic fields. Electrons and ions zoom by at over 1 million miles per hour, with occasional blasts from solar storms pushing them to near light speed. This stream of particles, or tiny bits of sun, is the solar wind. Earth's magnetic field, which extends approximately 60,000 miles into space, protects us and our astronaut crew closer to home aboard the International Space Station. As the moon orbits Earth, it passes in and out of Earth's long magnetotail, the part of Earth's magnetic field blown back by the solar wind like a windsock. Gateway, however, will spend only a quarter of its time within this magnetic field, so it provides a research opportunity to directly measure the solar wind and radiation from the sun. Hermes, short for Heliophysics Environmental and Radiation Measurement Experiment Suite, will glimpse what's happening deep in the magnetotail, allowing NASA to compare its observations to 2 of the 5 Themis spacecraft, a pair of moon orbiters that carry some similar instruments as Hermes. The ability to collect data simultaneously from the 3 instrument suites in different locations will provide a rare opportunity to reconstruct solar wind behavior as it changes over time. Hermes will measure lower energy radiation that will be considered for astronaut safety where applicable, but its primary goal is scientific. Ursa, or European Radiation Sensors Array, will study the effects on astronauts and their equipment. Equipped with 5 instruments, Ursa measures energetic particles from the sun, galactic cosmic rays, neutrons, ions, and magnetic fields around the gateway. Measuring these particles can tell us about the physics of radiation in the solar system and understand the risk posed by radiation to human spacefarers and their hardware. The both Hermes and Ursa are made at time of impact, once the radiation has already arrived. But in the long term, the measurements will help NASA and ESA improve their models of space weather to better predict when such radiation could be on its way from the sun, enabling better advanced warnings in the future. And in space history this week, starting with November the 16th, back in 1973, the third and final Skylab crew launched. Astronauts Jerry Carr, Bill Pogue, and Ed Gibson flew to NASA's orbiting workshop for a record-breaking 84-day mission. The mission offered scientists the chance to study processes on Earth as well as in space over an extended period of time. The crew performed dozens of experiments during their 1,214 orbits. The station was actually the upper stage of a Saturn rocket converted into living and working space for the astronauts on board. The station's orbit deteriorated and burned up on atmospheric re-entry on July 11, 1979. On November the 17th, back in 1967, Surveyor 6 made history by becoming the first spacecraft to take off from the moon. Surveyor 6 had landed on the moon in the Sinus Medi region on November the 10th, the fourth successful lunar landing in the Surveyor program. On November 17th, its engines were fired for seconds, allowing the lander to hop across the lunar surface, 2.4 meters to the west. This hop provided new information on the effects of firing rocket engines on the moon, leading to the success of the Apollo missions. Also on November the 17th, back in 1970, the USS did the first roving space probe on the moon. The rover, known as Lunokhod 1, was delivered to the moon by Luna 17. Lunokhod 1 landed in the Sea of Rains on the lunar surface and was manually operated under the control of several Soviet drivers on Earth. The mission was officially declared complete on October 4th, 1971. However, the laser reflectors on the rover still work and were used in 2010 to pinpoint the location of Lunokhod 1. On November the 18th, 2013, the Mars Atmospheric and Volatile Evolution, or MAVEN mission, launched to study the Martian atmosphere and climate. Specifically, the spacecraft set out to learn how Mars lost most of its atmosphere and water to space, resulting in today's Martian climate. On April the 5th, 2019, the navigation team completed a 2-month aerobraking maneuver to lower MAVEN's orbit and enable it to better serve as a communications relay for current landers as well as Mars Perseverance. As of September of this year, the spacecraft is continuing its science mission as well, with all instruments still operating and with enough fuel to last until at least 2030. On November the 19th, 1969, Apollo 12 made a pinpoint landing on the moon. Commander Pete Conrad set down the lunar module, call sign Intrepid, just 535 feet away from the Surveyor 3 probe that had landed on the Ocean of Storms in April of 1967. This was the first and so far only time that humans have visited a previously landed mission. The mission was enormously fruitful, including an inspection of Surveyor 3 and the return of some parts. But this crew, which included lunar module pilot Alan Bean and Dick Gordon as command module pilot, was especially known for doing their work with huge style of their own. Upon setting foot on the moon, Commander Pete Conrad's first words were, "Whoopee, man, that may have been one small step for Neil, but that's a long one for me." Later said that he did this to prove to an Italian journalist that NASA did not script astronaut comments. And finally, on November the 20th, 1998, Zarya, first component of the International Space Station, was launched on a Russian from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, kicking off a new era in the human exploration of space. This was the first element in orbit, the Russian-built, U.S.-owned functional cargo block control module to provide the initial propulsion and power for the future space station. And that's all I've got this evening. This is K5KTX. Back to you, Brenda.
Thank you, Kelly. We have another Brookhaven check-in, Stephanie, and this is WB50ZL. Next, we have Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. We call on Chaz, KF5JHA.
Thank you, Brenda. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent Key Carolyn, KC50ZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week, almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year, out of the 88 total constellations, Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week covered the entire sky in a year. In her honor, we have continued that tradition of a constellation per week. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week is actually a twofer, two constellations. Sculptor, which is a sculptor's workshop, and Phoenix, a very special bird. Slide number 13, slide changer, please. The constellation of Sculptor was originally named the Sculptor's Studio or the Sculptor's Workshop. The original name has been since shortened to be just simply Sculptor. Alpha Sculptoris is a very Sculptor is a very dim constellation, but Alpha Sculptoris is the brightest star, but it's kind of dim, hard to see at magnitude 4.3, and it has no proper name. The lack of bright stars in Sculptor is partly to explain for the fact that it has the south galactic pole that lies within its boundaries of this constellation, and therefore it's far away from the plane of the Milky Way as possible, making stellar density very low. Alpha Sculptoris is a blue-white giant star and is a variable star. Alpha is located about 780 light years from the Earth. R Sculptoris is a variable star. Richard Allen, in his book Star Names, says R Sculptoris is described as an intensely scarlet variable and one of the most brilliantly colored stars in the heavens, with a period of variability from 5.8, that's hard to see with the naked eye unless you're out in the countryside away from the city lights, to about 7.7 in 207 days. 7.7 you cannot see with your two eyes. R Sculptoris is also a carbon star, which gives it its clear red color. Slide number 14, NGC 253 is a great Sculptor galaxy. It's sometimes referred to as the silver coin or the silver dollar galaxy. It was discovered by Carolyn Herschel in 1783 and is about 9.8 million light years away. Burnham's Celestial Handbook calls NGC 253 one of the most prominent in the sky for small telescopes, and probably the most easily observed spiral, with the exception of the Great Andromeda Galaxy M31. Slide number 15. NGC 300 is a spiral galaxy that's about 3.9 million light years away. It was discovered by James Dunlap and is included in his 1827 catalog. NGC 300 is often called the Southern Pinwheel Galaxy because it resembles M33 in triangulum, which is also known as the Pinwheel Galaxy. Stephen J. O'Meara writes that NGC 300 is visible as a roundish glow in 7 by 35 binoculars from a clear, dark sky with unobstructed view of the southern sky. And I am KF5JHA Chaz, and this is Skynet. All right, slide number 16. We're going to go on to the constellation of Phoenix. Phoenix constellation lies in the southern sky. It's named after the phoenix, the mythical bird that rises from its own ashes. An interesting bird. The mythical bird Phoenix is also known as the secret Firebird. Phoenix constellation is easy to see for anyone in Australia and South Africa during the Southern Hemisphere summer, but generally can't be observed by anyone living north of the 40th parallel and lies pretty low in the sky for observers north of the equator. Now, I grew up in Ohio. It would be very difficult to see even a part of it. But here in Texas, we can see most of the constellation. It's mostly above the horizon in North Texas right now. That's why we're talking about it. Phoenix is the 37th constellation in size, occupying an area of 469 square degrees. Okay, Anka, which is Alpha Phoenix, is the brightest star in the constellation. Alpha Phoenicius, I'm trying to use the genitive of the constellation of Phoenix, is a spectroscopic binary star approximately 85 light years in distance. The system has the combined stellar classification of a K 0.53b and its combined apparent magnitude of 2.377. The two components of the system orbit each other with a period of 3,848.8 days, or about 10 and a half years. The primary star is the spectral classification indicates, and it's an orange giant. Beta Phoenicius, I'm messing up, I'm sure, the genitive of Phoenix, belongs to the spectral classification of G83 variable. It has a visual magnitude of 3.32 and is approximately 198 light years in distance from the solar system. It is a binary star. It is composed of two class G8 yellow giants and is an apparent magnitude of 4.0 and 4.1. The two stars orbit each other in a period of 168 years. Slide number 17, sir. Robert's Quartet is a compact group of galaxies in Phoenix, approximately 160 million light years distant from the sun, with a combined visual magnitude close to 13. That's not very bright. The galaxies in the group are NGC 87, 88, 89, and 92. They're located within an area spanning about 75,000 light years. The four galaxies are in the process of colliding and merging. They were first discovered by English astronomer John Herschel in 1830s. One more object to talk about in Phoenix. This is slide number 18. Is one of the most massive galaxy clusters known. It has shown star-forming activity at the highest rate ever recorded in a galaxy cluster, with a recent creation of 740 solar masses per year. Wow. The cluster is also emitting more X-rays than any other known massive galaxy cluster. There is a supermassive black hole at the core of this system that is growing very rapidly and expanding at approximately 60 solar masses per year. Currently, it is 20 billion times the mass of the sun. That's a billion with a B. Wow, that's big. The black hole at the center of the Milky Way is only a few million solar masses big. Okay, my call sign is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. There are, slide number 19, there are more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation of Sculptor and Phoenix. I've just given you a sampling of a few of those objects. The Astronomical League has over 60 different observing programs, most of which have about 100 objects. So, if you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pin in about a year. And slide number 20, that is Miss Carolyn's Constellations, plural, of the week, Sculptor, the Sculptor's Workshop, and Phoenix, a very special bird. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for the research and the words on the deep sky objects that I have used, borrowed, stolen tonight. I have also used the website constellation-guide.com for information. Next week, only one constellation. The constellation will be Cassiopeia. We've heard about her before. We've even heard about some of the constellations involved in that story, but that's what we'll have next week. And that's all for the Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. Back to you, Brenda. This is KF5JHA.
Thank you, Chaz. This is WB50ZL. Do we have any more check-ins? Okay, coming up next, space launches for this week. Tom, KE5ICX. Go ahead, please.
All right, thank you, Ms. Brenda. And this is KE5ICX. Space launches, well, they're getting more numerous as time goes on, but here we go. We've got a Falcon 9 Starlink launch on November 22nd, 23rd, overnight. This will be a Falcon 9 SpaceX rocket. Will launch the 16th batch of approximately 60 satellites for SpaceX Starlink broadband network. This one is designated V1.0L15. We have on November 23rd a Long March 5 called Chang 5 rocket will launch the Chang 5 mission to return samples from the moon. It is the first lunar sample return mission attempted since 1976. On November 23rd, 24th, we have a Soyuz launch from Plistek, I can never say it, Plistek, I'll figure it out, Cosmodrome in Russia. A Russian government Soyuz rocket will launch 3 GONET-M communication satellites and a cluster of international ride-share payloads. The rocket will fly on a Soyuz 2.1B configuration with a Fregat upper stage. Pretty standard stuff for them. Here's an interesting one. It's to be determined. They don't have a date for it yet, but it'll launch a Delta IV Heavy from Cape Canaveral Air Force Station at SLC 37B. A United Launch Alliance Delta IV Heavy rocket will launch classified spy satellite payload for the U.S. National Reconnaissance Office. The largest of the Delta IV family, the Heavy version, features 3 Common Core boosters mounted together to form a triple body rocket. This was delayed from June and August 26th. It was scrubbed on August 27th because of the pneumatics issue. It also aborted T-minus 3 seconds on August 29th. It's delayed from September 26th by a swing arm issue, scrubbed on September 28th due to weather, scrubbed on September 29th due to a hydraulic leak on the mobile service tower retract system, aborted on September 30th at T-minus 7 seconds. My. Coming up the fourth quarter, we've got an Electron launch. This is an Rocket Lab Electron launch. Its first mission from the new pad in the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport at Wallops Island, Virginia. The launch customer is the U.S. Air Force. The mission will launch an experimental mission for the space test program called Monolith with a space weather instrument. The Monolith mission will demonstrate the ability of a small satellite to support large aperture payloads. This one's a favorite of mine, Ilana 20. The launch site, Cosmic Girl, a Boeing 747 from the Mojave Air and Spaceport in California. By the way, this is a modified passenger jet from Virgin Atlantic that's now flying as the launch vehicle. The Virgin Orbit Launcher 1 rocket will launch on its second flight after dropping from the modified Boeing 747 carrier jet. The flight will be conducted under contract with NASA's Venture Class Launch Services Program, carrying 14 CubeSats to orbit for NASA's field centers, U.S. educational institutions, and laboratories on the Ilana 20 rideshare mission. On November 28th, we have, again from Cosmodrome in Russia, and a Russian government Angara A5 rocket will launch on its second orbital test flight. That's all it says. Doesn't say what it's doing or anything. I got to check into that. That's kind of interesting. Russia using something other than a Soyuz rocket booster. Interesting. On November 28th, 29th, there will be a Soyuz Falcon Soyuz launch from French Guiana. An aerospace Soyuz rocket designated VS-24 will launch on a mission from the Guiana Space Center in South America. The Soyuz will carry the Falcon I-2 high-resolution Earth imaging satellite for the United Arab Emirates. It's built by the Airbus Defense and Space with an optical imaging payload from the Taos Alina Space Falcon I-2 is the second of two surveillance satellites ordered by the UAE's military. The Soyuz 2-1A Soyuz STA rocket will use the Fregat upper stage. And then finally, on November 29th, there will be a launch from Japan, from the Tanegashima Space Center. A Japanese H-2A rocket will launch Japan's first optical data relay satellite with a laser communications payload in geosynchronous orbit. The spacecraft will relay signals between Earth orbit satellites and ground stations. That one sounds like another interesting one. That's it for me. Back to net control. This is KE5ICX.
Thank you very much, Tom. This is WB50ZL. Next up, recent astronomical discoveries. And that's me. The article's entitled Field Geology at Mars' Equator Points to Ancient Megaflood. Floods of unimaginable magnitude once washed through Gale Crater on Mars' equator around 4 billion years ago, a finding that hints at the possibility that life may have existed there, according to data collected by NASA's Curiosity rover and analyzed in joint project by scientists from Jackson State University, Cornell University, and the Jet Propulsion Laboratory and the University of Hawaii. The research, deposits from giant floods in Gale Crater and the implications for the climate of early Mars, was published November 5th in Scientific Reports. The raging megaflood, likely touched off by the heat of a meteoritic impact, which unleashed ice stored on the Martian surface, set up gigantic ripples that are telltale geologic structures familiar to scientists on Earth. We identified megafloods for the first time using detailed sedimentological data observed by the rover Curiosity, said co-author Alberto J. Ferrin, a visiting astrobiologist in the College of Arts and Sciences. Deposits left behind by megafloods had not been previously identified with orbiter data. As is the case on Earth, geological features, including the work of wind and water, have been frozen in time on Mars for about 4 billion years. These features convey processes that shaped the surface of both planets in the past. This case includes the occurrence of giant wave-shaped features in sedimentary layers of Gale Crater, often called megaripples or antidunes, that are about 30 feet high and spaced about 450 feet apart, according to lead author Azet Haydari, a professor of physics at Jackson State University. The antidunes are indicative of flowing megafloods at the bottom of Mars's Gale Crater about 4 billion years ago, which are identical to the features formed by melting ice on Earth about 2 million years ago, Haydari said. The most likely cause of the Mars flooding was the melting of ice from heat generated by a large impact, which released carbon dioxide and methane from the planet's frozen reservoirs. The water vapor and release of gases combined to produce a short period of warm and wet conditions on the red planet. Condensation formed water vapor clouds, which in turn created torrential rain, possibly planet-wide. That water entered Gale Crater, then combined with water coming down from Mount Sharp in Gale Crater to produce gigantic flash floods that deposited the gravel ridges in the Humaki Plains unit and the ridge and trough band formations in the striated unit. The Curiosity rover science team has already established that Gale Crater once had persistent lakes and streams in the ancient past. These long-lived bodies of water are good indicators that the crater, as well as Mount Sharp within it, were capable of supporting microbial life. Early Mars was an extremely active planet from a geological point of view, Farron said. The planet had the conditions needed to support the presence of liquid water on the surface, and on Earth where there's water, there's life. So early Mars was a habitable planet, he said. Was it inhabited? That's the question that the next rover, Perseverance, will help to answer. Perseverance, which launched from Cape Canaveral on July 30th, is scheduled to reach Mars on February 18th, 2021. Joining Farron and Hendari on the paper are Jeffrey Schroeder, a bunch of names. Data and funding were provided by NASA, Malin Space Science Systems, and JPL, and the European Research Council. Okay, that is from ScienceDaily.com, and that is it. Do we have any more check-ins right now? Okay, this is WB50ZL. Next up, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days. Tom, KE5ICX, do you want to cover this?
Well, sure I will, and I'll be happy to do so. So I get this information from heavens-above.com, heavens above with a little dash in between, a hyphen. This information, you just plug in your longitude and latitude. I think there's some other easier ways to do it now too, with maybe a zip code or something. But in any case, the information is available online, and the site continues to expand with some really interesting dynamic stuff. But I'm just going to give you the basic templates for tonight. Just two spacecraft I'm going to do. X-37B, which is the winged spacecraft that Space Force is operating. We don't know. It stays in orbit for 2 or 3 years. I think there's 2, maybe 3 of these spacecraft they are currently utilizing. The first one we got is November 25th. It'll be a 0.5 magnitude at 1832 our time. It'll be out of the southwest at 10 degrees. It'll reach its highest point at 72 degrees at 1835, and then it falls at 1836 into 40 degrees, which means it goes into shadow. The second one is on November 27th. That's a 1.1 magnitude at 1812. That's 6:12 our time out of the west-southwest. It'll reach its highest point at 1815 at 51 degrees, and then fall at 1817 at 17 degrees. It too will go into shadow. Next up is the Envisat. This is north-south polar satellite. November 22nd has a good pass, 3.4 magnitude at 1748 our time. Yep, 5:48 in the evening. It's dark already. It'll reach its highest point at 72 degrees at 1753, and then it'll fall at 1758 at 10 degrees to the north-northwest. Next up is November 25th. This one is 3.0 magnitude at 6:27 in the morning. It reaches highest point at 78 degrees at 6:32, and it'll fall at 6:37. Next one is the 30th. There's two good passes on this one. This one is a 3.1 magnitude at 6:41 a.m. It reaches highest point at 6:46 at 54 degrees, and it'll fall at 6:51. And then finally, the second pass will be in the afternoon or evening at 3.5 magnitude at 1751 out of the south. Reaches highest point at 1756 at 65 degrees, and then it will fall at 1801 around 10 degrees. So that's a really nice pass. Hopefully you can see it, 3.5 magnitude. I think you can. Just look up in the sky, look for something moving, and you'll have a very good chance to see what's going on. So back to you, Miss Brenda. This is KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. Well, we're actually running a little ahead of time, so do we have any Q&A tonight? Okay, any additional check-ins? Great. Well, don't forget about the next net, the Afterglow movie net with Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1978. And we'll start about 10:30 or so on this repeater. So tonight we had 31 hams on the air. Thanks to all who checked in. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. If you would like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. Until next Saturday night, this is Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima. My name is Brenda, and I will be closing the net at 10:20 p.m., returning the repeater to normal amateur use. 73, everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe.
Control.
Hey, Tom, I liked the movie this time. I would be honored to be net control if you want me in 5EB.
Ping, your net control. All right, you got it. KE5ICX.
Well, that was easy. We're going to start the net on 10:30 precisely in about 3 minutes, so I can go get an ice cream bar in 5EB.
Normal state. MCOM net, second Monday at 7 p.m., W5FC.
I'm completely operational and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow movie net.
Okie dokie. I've got my Klondike bar. I've got some something to drink, some water. So all is good with the world. This is Inside BB. Net control for Afterglow. Tonight we're going to talk about the Invasion of the Body Snatchers remake in 1978. This is widely thought to be the best remake of a science fiction movie ever. And I'm biased. I'll say yes, I agree with that. So, let's start off and get check-ins. So please check in with your name and location and whether you saw this movie, the 78 version, the 1978 version with Donald Sutherland, An Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Again, call sign, name, location, did you see the movie? Go ahead, Inside BB.
Allen in North Garland, and yes, I saw the movie.
In Louisville, and I have my pod right here.
Okay, hold there. We had a bad double. Alan, what was your call sign and did you see the movie?
November Golf 5 Yankee, and yes, I saw the movie.
Very good. We have NG5Y who saw the movie, KE5ICX who also saw the movie. Anyone else want to check into Afterglow? This is N5BB, net control.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brenda. I did see this movie.
Kilo Golf 5 Bravo Zulu Whiskey, Junior Weber, they'll probably use Echo Link. I did see the film, and I'll probably be short time.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth. Yes, I seen the movie.
Okay, I recognize WB50ZL, Brenda, who saw the movie, KG5BZWJ, who also saw the movie, and KB9SOK, Sean, who saw the movie. Anybody else? N5BB, net control for Afterglow.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony and Dallas. I saw the movie.
And I recognize Tony, NT5TM, who did see the movie. Well, so far, we've got 100% of people who saw the movie, and nobody else on Echo Link. Does anyone else want to check in to the Afterglow net in 5BB net control? Nothing heard. Okay, I think I'll go in reverse order tonight. But before I do that, Tom, do you want to present your interpretation of the movie in 5BB?
Sure, I'll be happy to do that. It's short and sweet. Here it is. There it is. David Kibner played with a stack of books on his desk. He was discouraged over the less than stellar book signing. Somehow his latest opus, Alien Creatures Reaction to Pine-Scented Room Deodorizers, hadn't become the public buzz he'd expected. He knocked the book stack over to see what would happen. The books fell onto the table but didn't gather any attention from the buying public shopping around him. Kibner saw a lot of activity at the Star Trek table. Liam Shatner was soaking up all the attention, and his book, Star Trek Makes Me Ungodly Sums of Money, So Buzz Off, was doing a brisk business. And that's it. Join us for the next remake now. KE5ICX.
Well, thank you, Leonard Nimoy rather than William Shatner, but that's okay. Okay, thank you, Tom. Okay, I'm going to go in reverse order tonight, just because I want to. And we're going to start off with the plot. So, Tony, NT5TM, what say you about the plot of the 1978 remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers? This is N5BB. Go ahead.
I thought I'd have more time to prepare. I realized that I'd seen the 93 remake and I'd seen the 50s original, but I had not seen this before, so it was very exciting for me. In general, I thought the plot was tight and it kept me interested. I will have things to say about the cinematography and kind of the mise-en-scene with the various San Francisco locations later. But if I just keep it to a short opening comment on plot, it was mostly very good. I did laugh to myself about how our female heroine for most of the movie was the most amazingly deep sleeper I have ever seen in my life. I mean, if you pick me up, it doesn't matter if I went the previous night without sleep, I'll wake up. The damsel in distress thing was a little exaggerated there. But in general, I enjoyed it. It kept me engaged, and I thought they did a good job. NT5TM.
Well, thank you, Tony. What I should have said earlier is I'm going to split the discussion into 4 sections. First, we're going to talk about the plot. Then we'll speak about the characterization. Third, we'll talk about cinematography, special effects, music, things like that. And then we'll have a final follow-through on the end, okay? So plot right now. Next go around with the characterization. We'll then do special effects, music, cinematography, anything about that kind of stuff, kind of direction, and then a follow-up. Okay, so plot. Sean, KB9SOQ. What say you about the plot? This is Inside BB.
Yeah, I also enjoyed this movie. I've also seen all 3, and it's been quite some time since I've seen all 3. I was almost tempted to go back and watch the original just to compare it, but I ran out of time. But I did enjoy this version very much. I do think the plot was pretty solid. It's kind of nice to see a kind of an alien invasion movie done a little different instead of the typical, aliens coming in, shooting everybody up. It was more interesting to see how this plant-based life form took over the people. So I think it was a nice change in plot for this type of movie. A little bit of I think slash kind of a scary movie slash sci-fi kind of thing. I mean, we could get picky if we wanted to and talk about the how the spores got here. But, actually, I won't pick on that because, all in all, I thought it was a pretty decent plot and enjoyed it. I don't have a whole lot to say other than that. So back to net control. This is KB9SOK.
Very good, Sean. Let's move ahead with Jay. You were kind of weak on RF, Jay. You want to try Echolink this time? We're talking about the plot. Go ahead, Jay, Inside BB.
Yeah, I figured I'd go ahead and use Echolink because I was listening to it at the same time I was transmitting. Okay, so the plot. It's... Oh, what to say? Let me keep this a little bit... I'm about to be turned into a pie person. That's how I am sleep-wise. I thought it was really engaging, and is to say I liked it seems to be a bit much because, well, it's basically a it's like, is it really sci-fi or it's just more horror because you're not really given a chance to figure out. I mean, I take this back. You are given a chance to try to figure a way out of the scenario, and it's kind of interesting, and I'd say it invigorates the mind to try to figure out. Okay, I don't know. Compare. How to say this without sounding a little bit crazy, but that's kind of the whole thing about the film is like it's super crazy events. It's not going to make any rational sense. The exception of, the fact that, I don't think a factory that size is going to be big enough to make enough parts for a whole city, much less, other cities and whatnot. It would be, my math intuition says like, yeah, that's not quite enough, but maybe I could be wrong. Guys, you know, they don't exactly just show the size of it other than it's, it takes up all the screen, yay. They could go on about some of the good aspects of it and characterization, but like I said, I'm kind of, not sure that there's anything I can say without rambling on and on about nonsense, really. So what I think is going to happen, I want to say thank you to whoever chose this film. I think this is going to be my last transmission. I'm going to be listening and probably going to sleep, but it's a very interesting film. KG5BCW.
Very good, Jay. Thank you. Now let's move on to Brenda, WB5OZL. Brenda, what did you think about the plot? This is in 5BB, Afterglow.
This is WB5OZL. I like the plot. I like the movie in general. But I kind of didn't like it because it was so scary, but that was a success on his part. I think that it scared me. I didn't see it in 1978 because I didn't want to be scared. So, never saw this before. But, I liked that it, the acting was good, the story flow, it was engaging. I didn't want to turn it off. I didn't want everybody to die. And, on the whole, I would say it was a pretty good movie. Of course, the plot wasn't exactly the original, which was based on a book, but it was close enough. Back to net, WB5OZL.
Very good. Thank you, Brenda. Okay, Tom, time for you. KU5ICX. What do you say about the plot? This is in 5BB. November 5, Bravo, Bravo with Afterglow. Go ahead.
Thank you, Bill. This is KE5ICX. Well, believe it or not, I thought I had seen this movie, but of course I'd seen the original many times, and I discovered that, quite honestly, I had not. I'd seen bits and pieces of it through the years, but never the entire movie, and so I was pleasantly surprised as I watched this thing and discovered I did like it. I did like it a lot. The original was always a favorite of mine. I think it's well done, and when you talk about 50s and, the whole thing originally having to do with, infiltration by communists and all of that was theorized. The fact that everybody is being changed, and this starts almost immediately in the film, which I thought was really interesting. Usually it takes a while to ramp up to that. It didn't take any time at all, so the plot just took off almost immediately. The way all the scenes were actually handled in San Francisco, I thought were quite good. I thought that the whole thing just seemed and felt very authentic. A lot of science fiction films, no matter what they do and how they do them, they have a tendency not to be that way. And it may be because of the pedestrian style that you've got. I mean, you've got real cameras there with people walking the streets and with some, I assume, some folks that weren't actually extras but actually there. But that's okay. I think that's fine. The story carried itself really well, and it followed along in a trajectory that worked really well, which I really like. I like a faster paced story. Unless it's got something that's really, really deep thinking, then you can slow it down. This one was not. I mean, it had a simple premise that we've seen and understood for years and years, and that is, taking over people's bodies or taking over societies, invasions. And we've had variations of that for many, many years. And perhaps the original Body Snatchers was kind of the impetus that set that off in the first place. So, story-wise, it made sense. It had the unhappy ending, as you might expect. But it was kind of a feeling as you're watching this thing, as the world goes tumbling away, that, the norms have changed, and there's no stopping it. I mean, it was just the incessant pods being transported around the world, and the constant voices in the background directing people to continue to pick up their pods and take them everywhere. I mean, it was very methodical. We don't know why they were there as far as the aliens, except that they kind of liked our place. Maybe we got good soil, I don't know. And everything's built up everywhere. So this insidious thing kept going on. So I don't know, maybe I'm partially sensitized to the thing because of, what's been going on over the last 8 months has been totally bizarre and different than anything we ever had, and this film sort of confirms the worst case scenario and fears. So I was somewhat sensitized by it because of what's been going on. But overall, I thought it was well done. I like the original better, I have to say that, but I think, though, I thought this production was really good. And I've got things to say about effects and story, not story, but the way things were done, cinematography and that, because I thought that was a hallmark of the film as well. Back to net control, KE5ICX.
Very good, Tom. Yeah, I agree with everything you said there, and we'll talk about more of that later. So next, Alan, NG5Y. What say you about the plot? This is in 5BB, Afterglow.
Well, to be honest, I had not seen this movie before either. I might have seen snippets of it here and there, but this was my first time viewing it in its entirety. I thought the movie was engaging and moved along well. As far as the plot goes, any intelligence that could travel through space could probably wipe us out at a blink of an eye. So in that way, maybe the movie was somewhat realistic. Got kind of tired of the bad things are going to happen if you fall asleep plot device, but that seems to be in every horror movie. Bad things happen when you fall asleep. What do they have against having a good night's sleep? Anyway, back to net, NG5Y.
Okay, Alan, this is Inside BB. Well, remember that meme about falling asleep and bad things happen? It was started probably with this movie franchise, this story. Okay, it's my turn. Well, the story was a novel written by Jack Finney, who was a science fiction author that wrote a few other interesting things, but he's very well known for this story. And director was Philip Kaufman, that directed a lot of other science fiction things. So this was kind of, I believe, his big first movie kind of thing. It was pretty interesting. So I like the plot also. I think the director chopped everything down to the basics. So there wasn't a lot of extraneous stuff in there. We learned what we needed to know. We saw what we needed to see. I think he purposely didn't add a lot of subplots and extraneous things to it. As Tom said, the movie started and bam, really quickly. You're right in there. And at the end of the movie, of course, it chops off. When there's only one person left that hasn't been invaded, and she's been discovered. So it's kind of a grim story, but it's just it was purposely, I think, made so it was as short as it could be to get everything across. I agree with Tom. It's really a sub-character in this is San Francisco. It really shows the buildings in San Francisco. There's a lot of shots looking at it from above, like in an aircraft looking down the buildings and things. The Transamerica building, the big pyramid-looking building, some other buildings, looking out the windows of places at the sky, at the city around them. So looking at the docks there on the bay. So it's kind of a 1970s film noir kind of thing. You know, it's a little bit of a dark, both in the mood of the film and the cinematography, kind of a film noir kind of look to it a little bit. And there's kind of anti-heroes, because all the heroes you think you have, they're all turning bad. They're all turning. So it's kind of a, you know, you want to root for them, but then suddenly they get sucked in just like anybody else. I thought it was, you know, if you just think about the plot of the movie, it's really interesting that the aliens, the big thing you can tell about them is they have no emotion. So kind of a neat plot twist is that all the good people have emotions and the bad people are walking around as automatons. So I think this is a little bit of, you know, thinking about the modern world and people acting maybe not with emotion, but with, you know, thoughtless, you know, walking down the street and driving down the street with no emotion, just trying to get places. So I think there was I think that was very obvious in the filming of the movie and the writing of the movie, the ideas of no emotions for the bad guys, the invaders. You'll notice as far as the plot, at one point, the Jeff Goldblum character, Jack, he came on he tried to use a radio and couldn't find any radio stations. And then, of course, the police were in on it. So, you know, they sucked all that part into the plot where the establishment was part of the whole problem. And I'll just throw this in. You know, this came just a few years after Watergate. For you younger people, this is where Richard Nixon was found to have committed some crimes and was essentially kicked out of the White House. He resigned. Right after his vice president, Spiro Agnew from Maryland, he had been found to have committed a number of crimes, and he resigned. So you had two different resignations, one by Spiro Agnew, the vice president, followed by the president. And then you had the Vietnam War, and that Nixon was involved with, and the ending of the war. And so, you know, the 60s going into the 70s with the war protests and, you know, all kinds of other thoughts by the younger generation of what was going to be going on, how the world was going to be reforming. And then, you know, you have this 1978 movie, it's all going to be bad. So I thought that was kind of interesting. One other very interesting thing is Nancy, Jack's love interest, is played by Veronica Cartwright, a famous actress. so Nancy, in her apartment there, she had a book which she was pointing out they needed to read. And I don't know if you guys noticed that book. It was a very famous book back then. It was Worlds in Collision. Worlds in Collision by the infamous Immanuel Velikovsky. And this was a book that was rather pseudoscience, and Velikovsky was a psychologist. He was a psychotherapist, but he went back through history, and he tried to explain history by the planets moving. That Venus started from coming like a comet or something, coming away from Jupiter, and it interacted with the Earth, and then Mars changed its orbit. And he said all this occurred in the last 12,000 years, and it caused a lot of the things you see in the Bible and other historical legends and other things you find around the world. So, it's kind of interesting. You've got this pseudoscience. It's kind of like a UFO thing, but pseudoscience, Worlds in Collision book right in the middle of this movie, which was a very obvious statement by the director. Okay, that's all I've got. So that's the plot. Let's move on to the characterization. So again, we're going to talk about the characterization, and then later we'll talk about special effects and cinematography, etc. So let's start now with characterization. Your turn, Tony, in T5TM. This is Inside BB with Afterglow.
Hey, Bill, I'd like to add a note that Mr. Finney's story was heavily inspired by the Robert Heinlein story, The Puppet Masters, which I happen to have right here in front of me. I'm going to read it before I go to bed. A lot of Heinlein's works are he was kind of hit or miss. He could do crazy things, he could do brilliant things. But The Puppet Masters is both short and fun, so I'm going to reread that before bed. The character that I objected to the most was actually the city of San Francisco. I got tired of seeing, look, someone's running away from the Transamerica building, they're running towards the Transamerica building, look, we can see City Hall in the distance, look, it's the Transamerica building again. I'm sure it's a pretty city, but I got a little tired of it. I thought they were overemphasizing that, and I don't think the city should have been a character because it didn't play, there wasn't some key part of San Francisco that served the plot. Oh, the hilliness blocked the aliens' mind control rays. I thought that was a character that the movie didn't really need to have, and I wish they'd left it out. But I did like pretty much all the human characters. Leonard Nimoy was perfectly cast because he played, of course, the emotionless Spock, and that's the stereotype we associate with him. So as this person who's already been turned before almost everyone else has, oh, what a great casting choice, because we all trust him because he's Mr. Spock, but yet he's emotionless. The gradual changes in the people, the way they showed their change from human to alien, even just by their walk. The characterization in this movie, except for the unnecessary character of the city of San Francisco, was really well done. I think that always makes for a better movie, and there were so many good notes, from people's worried looks to their falling asleep in a garden by Donald Sutherland just because he's exhausted. I am losing coherency here because I'm sleepy. I hope there are no pods in the house. The aliens are sure good at stashing pods everywhere, even in the beach grass, right? But the characterization was very well done and contributed to my enjoyment of the movie. Really liked it. NT5TM.
Very good. Thank you, Tony. Next, we have Sean, KB9SOK. Sean, what say you about the characterization? This is N5BB with the Afterglow Net.
Yeah, I thought the characterization was very good too. Yeah, I really can't say I've got any complaints at all about that. I think already been said, it was very well acted. It was, a lot of thought was put into how they acted in the transition. So yeah, no, it's very good. Yeah, I really don't have anything negative to say at all, or anything in particular to point out. But no, definitely well done. That's all I got. Back to net control. KB9, that's okay.
Very good there, Sean. I noticed that Billy, KF5PDS, is at least listening over an Echolink. Billy, do you want us to throw you in for the next go-around in a few minutes? What do you say? KF5PDS and 5BB, did you see the movie?
Hi, Bill. Good evening. Unfortunately, I did not get a chance to see the film, so I'll just be listening only. But I'm very interested in what folks have to say, and so I really enjoyed Tony's critique, so I'm just going to sit here and listen. So just count me in for the check-in, but you don't have to call on me. This is KF5PDS. Back to net.
Very good, Billy. Didn't want to ignore you there. I saw you over there on Echolink. I looked over. Okay. Jay, Jay's still logged into Echolink. Jay, do you want to give any more comments before you go to sleep? KG5BZW, N5BB. We're talking about characterization.
Okay, maybe I can come up with a coherent fire. Characterization. Yeah, I would disagree with Tony. I really appreciate the character of San Francisco. Just because I don't know. I've never been there. Granted, we're talking about 70 San Francisco. I think there's a usefulness to having just a point of familiarity, even if it's not really, true familiarity in that you know it personally, but you've seen images of it and all of that. I think it grounds it somewhat, but maybe there were a few too many shots of the I forgot the names of the building that he was talking about, the trends. I'm gonna botch it. No, I'm not even gonna try. Yeah, I agree with Lynn. It was pretty well. Kind of a slight plot twist that maybe you should have expected. I thought that was pretty good. I did also like the heroes seem to have their own little, for lack of knowing what to call it, neuroses. And they're smart individuals, or it seems at least some of them seem to be smart individuals that kind of know what they're talking about. But okay, and here's where I'm going to turn. And of course, there's. I don't know. I don't know that I can really say anything further about the fact it got to the authorities before they could realize the authorities were bad. I think that's already been kind of covered, and it's kind of an interesting point to the film, although I'm talking more plot instead of the characters here. I think the aliens, I thought was, you know, you call it emotionless. I know that's one of the characters called it. That's not how we can call that strictly true, but it's still certainly not emotions at a human level that they have. And I thought that was depicted very well. I don't have anything else. Like I said, I'll still be listening. I don't know if I'll be have anything else to say. Unless I literally just fall asleep. But anyway, and besides, it's already 11:30ish. No, I don't have my glasses on. It's not nearly that late. It's only 11:08 on my TV. But I'm sorry, I've already gone to rant mode. Not rant, ramble mode. So I'll hand it to the next person, KG5BCW.
Thank you, Jay. Now your turn, Brenda, WB5OZL. This is N5BB, Afterglow. What do you say about the characterization?
This is WB5OZL. I agree with everybody. The characters were wonderfully cast, and you know, they're all really good actors, veteran actors, and yeah, they fit their part. So, you know, that was good. Yeah, and they were consistent. Something we don't like in movies is when the characters stray off the path and you don't understand. But these were consistent. I don't really have too much else to say. I think everybody's in agreement on this. Back to that, WE50ZL.
Thank you, Brenda. Your turn, Tom, KE5SCX. This is N5BB. What about the characterization?
All right, thank you, Bill. And by the way, you may want to ask for new check-ins. I got through the back channels, through pods, that some people were busy trying to get through the movie before they checked in. So you might want to ask somewhere down at the bottom of the list. Yes, well, you know, we're coming up a little short on characterization as far as the characters and what they actually mean to us. I think simply because the movie went so rapidly, and we lost those characters very quickly through the film. So we're trying to find things that actually, you know, we can say about the characters and their overall performances that they turn into pods. But the film is splendidly cast. I mean, Donald Sutherland, we've got Leonard Nimoy, Jeff Goldblum, Veronica Cartwright, all these people we know. There's even a very short scene with Robert Duvall in it as the priest on the swing, you know. Philip Kaufman was in. I'm looking at the wiki here, but that's pretty cool. He's in the film. He is the guy that directed it, and he appears in the film as Dr. Matthew Bennell. His wife is in it. There's a few people. The director of the 1956 film version, Don Siegel's in it very briefly. The gruff taxi driver and all that. So I thought it was kind of cool. And if you blink, you miss those folks when they're in it. But I think, and I don't know. You know, I'm going to say this anyway because it kind of falls into the special effects part. But one of the things that I thought was really cool about the film, let me reset, is, and this falls kind of in the technical area and then it doesn't, but you've got your principal actors all cooped up in this room together and they're starting to shout at one another. They're wondering, what the hell are we going to do? What's going on? Who are these people? What's happening to everybody? And the room is very claustrophobic. It's got Sutherland in it, Nimoy. Adams is in it, Goldblum, all your major characters are there, and they're just the camera's on top of them, and the sound gets crushed. It gets very tight. It feels like you're in a sound booth it has hard walls in it. It's echoing and or like a phone booth. It sounds like a phone booth on the inside. That might be a better way to describe it. And it's a really unnerving scene, and they really get into this scene, and they got it down pat in a way that jacks up the stress level in the film, and I think that continues, and that's one of the things that really helps to pull out the second half of the story is when that happens. So I thought that was pretty darn cool. Now I won't have anything to say about that special effect, I guess, but those things I think really help the film. It's an ensemble piece too, which is good. I think that it a lot of times we feature individual actors. You've got Donald Sutherland, yeah, he's the big name. Nimoy was kind of not so much. Goldblum was coming up in the film, but everyone is given a chance to play their part, and it does come off as an ensemble piece rather than completely all about Donald Sutherland. So he is the principal actor, but in the end, I think that his character helps with the glue with the others because he encounters all of them. But in reality, I think that it has a nice varied texture of characters, even though we lose them fairly quickly. KE5ICX, back to net.
Very good, Tom. Before I continue, Tom pointed out something. Does anybody else want to check in? Is there anybody else that wants to check into the Afterglow net here? We're discussing the 1978 movie remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Would anybody else like to check in? This is N5BB, Afterglow net.
November 5 Sierra, Quebec Alpha.
Hey, Ron, N5SQA, did you see the movie?
Not in decades. I just kind of listened late Saturday nights to hear you guys. Just wanted to check in for the count. I think now that I know what the movie is you're talking about, I think I preferred the original better, but carry on. I love this net. N5SQA.
Okay, thanks, Ron. We'll put you down for listening. And be sure to listen to the next section about cinematography, special effects, things like that. I think this is it's a worthwhile movie, let's put it that way. Okay, is anybody else out there that would like to check in to Afterglow Net? This is N5BB. Okay, Alan, NG5Y, it's your turn to talk about characterization. This is N5BB.
Well, I loved how they kept it kind of tightly wound. You only had a few main characters. Yes, you had a large ensemble cast, but really Donald Sutherland and a character and I forget the lady's name, but they were your two primary points of focus, and all the others, Leonard Nimoy, they had their part and their purpose, but you weren't so much focused on them. Like the others have pointed out, as the people were converted or body snatched, they shift modes on you, and I agree with the others. The acting involved where they just made a subtle change in the way they portrayed the character. It was very perceptive that you could tell they had been changed. So that's all I got for you. NG5Y, back to net.
Okay, Alan, thank you. And I'm looking at the text over here on Echolink, and I see that KN6 KNE wants to be checked in, but he has no voice tonight. Is that correct, Denny? Denny says that's correct. So, one question, Denny. Did you see the movie, the 1978 version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers? Have you seen it? Well, no response, which I'm assuming means no, that Denny has not seen the movie. Okay, now it's my turn to talk about characterization. And I agree with what's been said before. I just want to quickly go through the main characters. Matthew, the main protagonist, who is Donald Sutherland. You know, they did a pretty good job early in the movie showing him going out and doing a restaurant inspection and looking for rat turds, and his windshield getting hit by a wine bottle from the restaurant employees, and him driving the car around with that broken windshield. You learn a lot about that character. He's out there to get out there and do his job, okay? He's a working scientist kind of inspector guy. So you learn a lot about him, and he's a very straightforward, person. He's looking for the truth. Okay, it's kind of interesting. This movie is kind of about the truth. Do you really believe are there aliens coming in? Well, in his day-to-day job, he's looking for the truth. Is there junk in that food? Brooke Adams, Elizabeth, who is a close friend and later on becomes a love interest. She she's a little bit like Donald Sutherland, like Matthew, a scientist person, but you learn something about her relationships and everything with her boyfriend and everything. Her boyfriend, who I forgot the actor's name there, you don't learn as much about him because he gets taken over first. So because he gets taken over first, we don't learn much about his. You learn a little bit about his reactions. You'll notice early in the movie, he is, watching the football games with his headphones on, ignoring Elizabeth, Brooke Adams. So you learn a little bit about their relationship. He's already kind of tuned out from her, and so I kind of like the fact that they got those characterizations up front. Leonard Nimoy is actually Tom before he gets taken over. He is very emotional. He's going over and hugging people and looking him in the eye and really talking to him very sincerely. So early in the movie, he's like this psychotherapist, hands-on guy. And so big turnaround from him to go from that to the emotionless character later. Jeff Goldblum is Jack. I look at that, at what he does in that, and it seems like it's the same darn core character that Jeff Goldblum always does. He is abrasive. He kind of walks away from you. He argues with you. You tell him to do something, and he does the opposite. He's like, if there's a fire there, he's the person most likely to get burned. Pick up the wrong end of something. I don't know. He's just kind of an abrasive character, and he plays that just perfectly in this movie. It's the standard, seems to me like it's the standard Jeff Goldblum character. Veronica Cartwright is Nancy. Like I say, she had the Velikovsky book Worlds in Collision on her coffee table there, so she kind of is believing in different things. Belief is very important for her, and she is really devastated by all this. So you kind of learn about her character quite a bit. So I think they did a really fantastic job at going through all these characters without wasting time, but fleshing out pretty well. I mean, when you see them interact, you kind of know where they're coming from. You've seen how they reacted to everything. You know, you've seen how Jeff Goldblum versus Veronica Cartwright reacted to the creature they found. They acted quite differently. She was, ooh, don't touch it, let's call the police, and he's more going over and poking it and looking at it. Anyway, very interesting. Okay, that's the characterization. Do we have anybody else that would like to check in to Afterglow Net? This is N5BB, Net Control. Moving right along, it's time for special effects, and I'm going to bundle together special effects, cinematography, details about the direction, music, anything about the production of the movie. The production of the movie, the things the director did, camera angles, anything all about the way the movie was directed and produced. Let's talk about those things. Tony, NT5TM, what do you say? This is N5BB.
There are many good things to say in this department. Erin has been looking up a lot of background of the movie, and she assures me that some of those viscous alien tendril glob things in the very beginning of the movie were very easy to shoot. But just because they were easy to shoot doesn't mean they weren't neat-looking and didn't contribute to the ominous beginning. My favorite effect in the entire movie, I think, occurred very near the beginning when one of the alien gelatinous globs lands on the leaf of a plant, and we start to see its tendrils spread out purposefully over the veins of the plant. I thought that was excellent. There's a lot of other effects that I can, okay, they had a silk flower pop out of the pod, and then they filmed that backwards, or they pulled it in and then filmed that backwards to make it look like it was popping out. And all of those things were well done, don't get me wrong, but it was just seeing those tendrils spreading on the plant leaf, that scared me. That seemed very ominous. So I thought the effects were a great contributor. The cinematography, I've got the movie actually freeze-framed on a kind of a hybrid Dutch tilt here. They're filming a woman going into a house in San Francisco, and of course the houses are built on the side of a hill, but they haven't quite compensated for that. So in addition to the houses looking strange because they're on the side of a steep hill, they're also pointing up into the right at about a 20-degree angle, so it looks like a world out of balance. Just about every shot in this movie looks carefully considered. Now, it might be logically impossible as people go down the stairway and light seems to emerge from an impossible direction underneath it, but it always sets the mood. Things don't have to make sense, they just have to tell the story, and they do that well. Erin was especially struck near the end there in front of San Francisco City Hall when Donald Sutherland has already been replaced by a pod person. Those heavily, insanely pruned sycamore trees that actually look like some surrealistic pod plant. No, apparently that's just an extremist technique for pruning trees. But boy, I don't do that to my trees. She doesn't do that to hers. It sure looks spooky in the context of the movie. So just a tremendous amount of thought went into the filming of this, and it really shows, and I really appreciated it. As far as the music, it was probably a little heavy-handed for me, but it hit a lot of good notes, pun intended. especially the silence at the end, just after that final scream when we realize Mr. Sutherland has been replaced. That just sudden quiet is great. Oh, and Aaron has a comment. Aaron likes that also because it reminded her of the end of Planet of the Apes, when we see the Statue of Liberty there on the beach and it just goes to the surf and there's nothing more to be said. So well-crafted. We were both, the sound of the surf there at the end was as good as the silence in this movie, she said. So well-crafted, we both liked it. NT5TM.
Very good, Tony. Some good comments. Sean, KB9SOK. What do you say about the special effects, cinematography, etc.? This is in 5BB with Afterglow.
Yeah, I agree with anything Tony just said. Said it very well, actually. Yeah, I enjoyed the beginning of it as well. I thought that was very good, especially for back in the 70s. I thought it was really well done. And I do think, probably the biggest star of it, as far as that goes, is the cinematography. You're right; they took very great amount of time to get everything just perfect, and some really good camera shots there. And of course, obviously, back in those days, they didn't have all the special effects that they got now. But I think in some ways, that some of these modern movies get ruined by some of that because I don't think they put near the amount of time. It don't seem like into the actual real shots anymore. So yeah, I really enjoyed that how they did shots, and I actually didn't mind all the scenes from the city. I never really noticed it being overdone. I thought it seemed like it fit, so I enjoyed that as well. There was a few times where I felt, sometimes maybe the dramatic music was a bit much because I even had to turn down the volume a couple times. But it didn't really bother me on that part. And just kind of almost step back a bit. But everybody's brought up the pace of the movie, and I really enjoyed the pace of it by the director. Because I also think it's another thing today in a lot of modern movies. They seem to want to drag things out, and these movies are getting whether 2.5 hours, 3 hours, and I think it's just too much. So it's been kind of nice watching some of these old movies that they just simply get it done in an hour and a half. So I actually like that. It's kind of nice. But it's very well done. That's all I got. Back to Net Control. This is KB9SOK.
Very good, Sean. Next, Jay, you want to make any more comments, or are you already asleep in 5BB? He says listen only now. Okay, Brenda, WB5OZL, what do you say about the special effects and the cinematography, the direction of the movie, the way the director did things in 5BB, Afterglow?
Thanks, Bill. This is WB5OZL. Sorry. Well, the special effects were a little different because you don't have spaceships and all that, but you had all this weird makeup where you transformed the bodies, which was very effective. It was so creepy and scary, and so that it worked, in my opinion. It was kind of, it's kind of weird because you don't have much in the way of real aliens. You don't have spaceships per such. So special effects were just mostly people being transformed and plants slithering around. But it was well done. I liked it. I will say, if I'm waiting in a long line to get my pod to take home, I probably want 2 or 3, so everybody could have one, right? Okay, back to that, WB5OZL.
Well, deliver them to you on a truck. Tom, K5ICX, what do you say about special effects, direction, cinematography, etc.? N5BB net control.
Thank you, Bill. And I think a lot of people have already touched on most of the points that I was going to have to put out, but I was going to mention a couple of things that weren't mentioned. One of them is on the special effects, and I did some reading on it. All of the special effects, such as they were, there weren't a lot. I mean, as Brenda mentioned, the thing was transformation was special effects. But the opening sequence and the leaf that was mentioned earlier by Tony, it's just simple gelatinous material, whatever you want to call it, and they ran the film backwards. That's all they did. And the director says he spent maybe $15 on this vat that he picked up at an art store somewhere to get the look. Sometimes that's all you need. And it really makes sense sometimes to, you don't always need to do multi-million, billion-dollar special effects to achieve a satisfying experience in a theater. Sometimes the simpler things work just as well, and in 1978, well, hell, we had Star Wars, and it had all sorts of special effects. In fact, some of the people that worked on this movie worked on Star Wars, which was a much bigger, very much more in-your-face type of film when it came to special effects. Sometimes you don't need it. This film didn't need it, which I think is kind of refreshing in a way. Let's see, one of the things that I liked, and you see it in the background, is all the hair from the pods after the transformation. It's everywhere. You look at the background, you'll see it. It's in the trash. It's on the streets. It's everywhere. It's its own cameo. I mentioned the scene with the actors all kind of cooped up together and shouting their way through it, and the sound, the hard sound that you get. Typically the hard sound that you get in really bad films, where they build the set, but the boom mic is too far away, and it just takes you out of the scene. Well, in the one scene where they're all arguing together, it's done on purpose to create this phone booth thing, like I mentioned earlier. I thought that was very effective, along with the acting that went along with it. So these two things kind of intersected each other in the film. One thing that drove me nuts is that, what is it? Matter cannot be destroyed or created. Is it matter or energy or something like that? Forgive me, I'm going to mess that all up. But the thing is that drives me crazy is that when you sit there and the whole people come out from the pod, and the pod's not big enough to handle all that. The plants, I mean, you have 4 people in the garden growing. Where do they come from? Where does all that material come from? Certainly not from the soil, and certainly not from the pods. But it was still effective. I like that. Another thing, of course, is kind of the film noir thing, which is the long shadows you get and people running and being chased. And I think, I'm not entirely sure, I have to go back and review it, since this is only the first time I've seen it, is that I think that the lighting changed a little bit on some of the actors when they got podized. So, but I'm not entirely sure. Sometimes that stuff is more visceral. It comes about in sort of a subconscious way. But I think, and I have to say, I think that the way the whole thing was filmed suggests that that's exactly what they were looking for. And there are touch points throughout the film, things you see, things you hear, that add to the entire whole that makes the movie very positive. And I wish that we did more of that today rather than making everything louder. Be more plotting, be more engaged in the entire process. And that requires a good director, and it requires good production afterwards, because you can do a whole hell of a lot. As an aside, and this doesn't necessarily make it, an absolute part of this, But if you go back and you look at with the original Star Wars and the way George Lucas had originally written it, it took, I think it was Francis Ford Coppola came in without name and helped re-edit the whole thing and transform the movie from a dud into one of the most popular movies ever made. That's just good editing. If you can do everything else, from sound to the actual pictures being produced, and the scenes in proper sequence, you can do a lot. This film managed to do that. And oh, by the way, I disagree. I kind of like San Francisco. I was born there, so I kind of got a soft spot for it, even though they rapidly took me to Detroit, my parents. Jeez. Okay, that's it for me. KE5ICX.
Okay, Tom, this is N5BB. Thank you. Alan, excuse me, Alan, NG5Y. Time to talk about special effects, cinematography, direction. This is N5BB with Afterglow. Go ahead.
I didn't notice the audio problem that you guys mentioned with the scene where they were all in the same room with each other. I thought the special effects were fine. It didn't even occur to me that there were any big gaffes in the or goofs. I was looking online, and they said that when they were loading the pods on the ship, that the ship was clearly in dry dock, and they would never be loading actual cargo on a ship in dry dock. But I didn't notice that on my own. I only saw it in the movie comments. Back to net, NG51.
Okay, thank you, Alan. This is N5BB Net Control. Now it's my turn. I agree with the earlier comment. I'm surprised nobody talked about one special effect that was thrown in for just a few seconds. And I think the reason they did that is this, for only a few seconds, it was probably very difficult for them to do in 1978, and they didn't have enough budget to do it longer. That was the man's face on the dog. So when they're loading, remember they're loading, they're distributing the pods from the back of a truck, and Donald Sutherland and some other ones, they're walking in line up to it. They're trying to blend in with the people, and as they walk up close to the truck, this little small dog comes running over with a dog chain and dog tags on and a man's face, and he licks his lips and looks up, and Donald Sutherland kind of reacts, and I guess he reacts the wrong way because this older woman screams real loudly. So, and there was nobody commented about that in the movie itself, but evidently one of these transformations went wrong, or maybe it went right. I don't know, but somehow the head of one person got transmuted onto the body of a dog. So I hope you guys caught that. If not, you can find it on YouTube. It's called Dog-Man Pod. Little clips of that. And for 1978, I think they did it well, but it was probably too expensive to do for more than just a few seconds. The other special effects, I thought the special effects of these mucus kind of covered bodies with the hair on them and everything that weren't fully formed, no fingerprints. I thought that was done just about right. It was very icky, but it was realistic. It wasn't too off. It wasn't too crazy. And one thing about the way it was directed and the characters and the photograph, closer to the end of the movie, when Elizabeth Brooke Adams, when she finally gets assimilated, you'll notice then when she actually is walking rapidly in the nude, actually, so you see little snippets of her body through all the other people. And the way they did that, the way it was filmed and everything, made it much more scary to me. She is, you saw the way that she looked at Donald Sutherland and told him, it's not so bad, you need to join us. But then she was very businesslike, not even clothed yet, going through all the other people. So I think they did that appropriately. I think that was well done and shot just about right. A lot of the chase scenes and those kind of things were done where it was very dark. It made it appear kind of scary. It also probably made it much easier to film since they didn't have to worry about, people on the street and other kind of things. So they could do it at night, kind of make it murky so you couldn't see what was going on in the distance. But kind of added to how scary it was because they were trying to get away in the night. They weren't running around so much in the day trying to get away from the police. Most of that was done at night. Again, I think there's a lot of little details in it that I thought were very good direction, very careful choice of the camera angles, and they caught good expressions on people's faces. The extras fit in very well in the movie. So personally, I think it was directed extremely well. Okay, let's move on now to the final comments. First, do we have any last-minute check-ins to the Afterglow net? We're talking about the 1978 remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Any last-minute check-ins before we go to the final comments? This is N5BB. Nothing heard. So I'm going to open it up for anybody. Does anybody have any final comments about the movie? Just give your call sign only, N5BB.
KE5ICX.
Okay, Tom, does anybody besides Tom have any final comments? It was a good movie. We all enjoyed it. Everybody had seen it. The movie moved along pretty quickly. So we're getting through this well before the end of the net. Go right ahead, Tom, N5BB.
Hey, Bill, thank you for doing the net this evening. And I'll tell you what, I will also close with next week's movie as well, and then you can take it from there. No, you asked me why did I pick William Shatner as the character at the bookstore in my highly detailed and accurate synopsis of the movie for this week, and that's because Leonard Nimoy played Kibner, who was the guy selling the books. So I thought that was kind of fun, and that's all. That's all it was. So next week's movie, and now I lost it. Hold on here. It's I remember. It's Riverworld from 2010. It was a sci-fi made-for-TV sci-fi movie on the Sci-Fi Channel way back when, and it's based on a book series, I think, that was done. I have not seen it. I've seen a little bit of it, but I haven't seen the whole thing. So that's next week, 2010. If you would like to get updates. If you're not a fan, if you would like to get an email with the updates to the movie, I usually get them done Sunday morning, and I will do Riverworld with the links and all that. I try and find free movie things usually with ads somehow. There's a lot of stuff posted online that you can watch the movie, so that's why we do what we do. Just send an email to me, Kilo Echo 5 India Charlie X-ray at yahoo.com, KE5ICX at yahoo.com, or go to the Facebook Afterglow Movie, that's 2 words, Afterglow and Movie, and sign up there, and you'll get the information. It's under the Files section in Afterglow Movie, and you'll find the movies and a bunch. And if you want to, let me reset. I am all open to any sort of suggestions for movies. So if you think of something, I try and make it so that it's available and we don't have to pay for the darn things, because sometimes that happens. So if you find something out there, or if it's something super popular, we probably got a copy, no problem, we can do that too. I just try and give you guys something different and something you may not have seen before. Sometimes it's good. Well, I pick the good ones. Brenda picks the bad ones. Back to you, Bill. KE5ICX.
Well, very good, Tom. This is Inside BB. The Riverworld series of, I'm trying to think, was it 3 main novels, maybe a 4th follow-on? Seems like it was something like that. Was maybe a trilogy, was a series by Philip Jose Farmer, a famous science fiction author back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And I was really into those books when they first came out, and I do remember reading those in detail. There's 5 novels in the series. The first one was To Your Scattered Bodies Go, and then The Fabulous Riverboat, The Dark Design, The Magic Labyrinth, and then The Gods of Riverworld, and River of Eternity. Anyway, and there were some short stories, but this is a whole other kind of alternative history thing, nearly, kind of. It's rather ambitious when you start. If you actually go and read the books, it's very ambitious. I don't want to give away the plot, but it's a rather ambitious plot. But a lot of it's hidden from you. You don't know exactly why. I've never seen that movie. I hope it's reasonable. I hope it's better than the stupid iRobot thing they hacked up and did a horrible job on. So we will see, Tom. Does anybody else have any comments before we close the net? This is the Afterglow net, Inside BB Net Control. Anybody out there want to say anything? So Jeremy, the KN4 Zombies Need Jobs, he has come in and off of Echolink. He must be having some trouble, because he'll get on Echolink for about a minute, make a statement, and then he disappears from the list. Anyway, I think that's it. Good night to all. We finished a little bit early. We've got a very interesting movie for next week. I hope it's interesting. The stories are interesting, but I hope the movie's okay, Tom. Oh, by the way, Tom, do you know how long it is? I mean, the original stuff is like this long series of 5 novels. Do you know how long the movie is? Is it one of these 3-hour things? Inside BB.
Bill, I'm not sure. Let me look here real quick. I think it's... Hi, I'm Dr. Somebody, yes. All right, fine. Hold on, I'm trying to find it, but it's got an ad in front of it like they all do. Hold on.
I have my own.
No, it's not bad. It's an hour and 36 minutes, it says. So it'd be 2 hours on an ad thing on Sci-Fi Channel.
Okay, now when I look this up, I see there was a TV movie made in 2003. There was then a 4-hour television miniseries on the Sci-Fi Channel in 2010. So I'm assuming you mean the 2003 movie, is that correct?
That's a good question. I don't know. I just assumed that it was the Sci-Fi Channel thing, but I didn't know there was 2 movies. This one, what did I put down? Hold on here.
Well, in 2003, it was also on the Sci-Fi Channel. So there were evidently 2 things. There was a 2003 film that was on the Sci-Fi Channel, and then there was a mini-series in April of 2010 on the Sci-Fi Channel. Isn't that confusing? Oh, it's a reboot of the original thing. Oh, I see. It looks like in 2003 they did a pilot, and then they fleshed this out with a miniseries in 2010. Do you see that, Tom?
Yeah, well, I don't know which version I got. I think all I can tell you is I put down 2010 for the date, but I did not realize there were 2 versions of this thing. I thought there was just one. So I just wikied it out because I couldn't get a date on the movie itself, so I just did it. So I don't know which version it is, the 2003 or the 2010, but I would assume since it's only 2 hours long that it may be the 2003 version. I'll have to look into that. Now that I know that there's 2 versions of this thing.
Well, the original pilot was 86 minutes long. Released March 22nd, 2003 on the Sci-Fi Channel. This is all from Wikipedia. I just looked up Riverworld movie on Wikipedia. I mean, on a web search. And then the 2010 thing, the miniseries, is 189 minutes. So if you said it's 200 minutes, 189 minutes would be 3 hours.
Well, it says here at the beginning, it says in association with Sci-Fi Pictures, and it says Riverworld, and this is the one I was familiar with when I watched a little bit of it, but didn't see the whole thing. So, you got me, I don't know. It's got the same opening and everything with the shuttle that I remember. I don't know. At least we can watch it and it's not 3 hours long. KE5ICX.
Okay, did you say it's about 3 hours long? The miniseries was a 4-hour television miniseries, but I guess when you cut out all the commercials and everything, the running time is 189 minutes, which is 3 hours and 9 minutes. You keep saying 2 hours, and I don't see where that's coming from.
Well, what I mean, Bill, is that when you take and you put all the commercials in, then this would be a 2-hour movie on Sci-Fi Channel. When you take all the ads out, it's an hour and 36 minutes. That's what I mean.
Okay. Well, the running time of the original pilot was 86 minutes. So maybe that's what you're talking about, hour and a half. So it sounds like if you're talking about something that's hour and a half running time, then it's the original pilot, which sounds reasonable. Because the other thing is, at 190 minutes, that's just too long for us all to watch. Hour and a half is much more like it. Okay, we'll be looking for your link to go out and everything. And hopefully it's reasonable. See you next week. This is N5BB, closing down Afterglow Net. Good night. Oh, by the way, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We had 7 stations contributing and 3 people listening. This is N5BB cleared.